Hello wrestling fans, this is Tom Colohue once again bringing you some news and updates based on what's just happened on Raw and the wider picture for the WWE at the moment. A lot seems to have come out of that Raw despite the whole empty arena and the brand new aesthetic that they're going for, which looks somewhat familiar to long-time wrestling fans. Let's see what's happened. Gorilla Position have reported that the current plan as regards Bray Wyatt and John Cena is a little bit more inventive than just two men in a ring. It looks like it's going to be another House of Horrors style match, shot on location in a warehouse. Now, I enjoyed the last House of Horrors match to an extent. I enjoyed the part that took place inside the House of Horrors. I really enjoyed the camera that was strapped to the fridge, and then the fridge falling onto Randy Orton. That was quite entertaining. The parts in the limos, not great. The fact that Jinder Mahal was involved, and everybody thankfully forgets it, but Bray Wyatt actually won that match because of Jinder Mahal. The fact that that was the end result, not the greatest moment in my personal opinion, but I still enjoyed it, and certainly with the Fiend character as it is now, it could be something very interesting indeed. I did mention on the SportsKeeda podcast last Thursday that we may be seeing multiple different elements. They're obviously shooting things in lots of different directions, and we may be seeing both Bray Wyatt and the Fiend involved in some regard here. That seems possible, if not necessarily likely at this time. I'm excited to see how John Cena fits into this, because obviously he has always had Bray Wyatt's back. He's interested in having Bray Wyatt do more things like this, in much the same way Randy Orton was for a long time. So this is very much Bray's baby, but John Cena has taken it to management on Bray's behalf as much as Bray has. So let's see what they can make together, shall we? AJ Styles versus The Undertaker will now be taking place in a boneyard. Boneyard. For anyone wondering what that is, I'm not entirely sure, but I do know it'll be taking place in a closed studio, at least somewhat resembling a graveyard, and there will be buried alive elements involved. It's still The Undertaker, there will still be buried alive elements. But it does mean that we're likely to see exactly what you'd expect, Gallows and Anderson getting involved, possibly being put into graves as it were. But the way this is playing out is very possible AJ Styles may win, and The Undertaker may briefly vanish again before coming out and emerging as a new version entirely, which will be fitting for The Undertaker's last run, which he is considering taking up very, very soon. A new evolution to begin a new chapter, which should be something new entirely. Quite exciting if you're an Undertaker fan. Should clean the palate for anyone who still very keenly remembers Undertaker's retirement, as I personally do. I do feel that was a perfect moment that has been somewhat sullied by his return since. However, he does seem to be performing a lot better in the ring recently, and I do think he's got a lot left to give. He certainly agrees in that regard, so let's see where he goes next. I mentioned last week that the planned main events for both nights were going to be Drew McIntyre and Brock Lesnar, and Roman Reigns and Goldberg. I also mentioned on that night that there was strong support for Shayna Baszler and Becky Lynch to be at least one main event for one of the nights. That is something that WrestleVotes has now confirmed through their sources. There is a real push to have that happen. I of course did mention just after the Royal Rumble that while Paul Heyman wanted Lesnar and McIntyre to main event WrestleMania entirely, Vince McMahon still wanted Roman Reigns to be the main event. That still very much seems likely, even with the changes of champions at this point. I first mentioned in early January that Sasha Banks against Bayley was supposed to be the Women's Championship match for SmackDown for WrestleMania. That was confirmed by Dave Meltzer recently, who mentioned that it was a last-minute change, as it were, to move to a six-pack challenge. That has now been moved to a five-pack challenge, of course, and an elimination match, which should keep things moderately interesting. I actually quite enjoyed the elimination multi-person matches. Adds a little bit more excitement, and you have less time when everyone's just sort of laid outside. It's a final two of Sasha Banks versus Bayley. We kind of still get that match, but we get a lot more in the build. And with Sasha Banks still quite recently coming back from injury, they are nursing her back a little bit, which is why she's been in tag matches and the like. This storyline is coming to a head eventually, hopefully sooner rather than later. Let's not forget, of course, that there will be events after WrestleMania. So this could really be a jumping off point right now, which could lead into a bigger feud. It does seem to be under question right now whether or not we will get the superstar shakeup that was planned just after WrestleMania. I still think that's likely, but with everything happening and maybe not being able to get everyone to the shows as they would like, it's going to be hard to pull off. It was reported on the Wrestling Observer that Rey Mysterio was not on the show this week due to being quarantined. That was also mentioned for Dana Brooke. To my knowledge, Rey Mysterio has not been quarantined due to having coronavirus. To my knowledge, he is simply self-isolating, and I believe that is also true of Dana Brooke. When information like this starts to surface, we need to be very careful about what we're saying. I am not aware of Rey Mysterio or Dana Brooke being ill at this time. On Raw, we saw the pairing of Ricochet and Cedric Alexander. There's been a few jokes on Twitter about this being the Jobber Brigade. That's simply not the case. These are two very talented people who put on a very good match. Unfortunately came out on the losing end, but they were certainly competitive. I would love to see more of this tag team. I don't believe that's the plan at the moment. It was just two men who are high flyers, very athletic, similar in regard to the Street Profits in that ilk. So it gave you something of a preview of what that match could entail. I would like to see more of this tag team. I would like to see more of this exact match. And I would love it if they were able to be so convincing in what they've been able to do that they were maybe added to the tag title match at WrestleMania. Keep going, guys. There are definitely greener days ahead. Alex McCarthy of TalkSport recently conducted an interview with Drew McIntyre in which Drew McIntyre went into detail about his relationship with Brock Lesnar, with Paul Heyman, the help and support they're giving him in getting over, and of course the fact that Brock Lesnar, as it comes to professional wrestling, really does get what it's all about. When you've got someone who is that level of hated, you know any wrestling company would love to have them. I believe the same about Baron Corbin. Drew McIntyre is really talking up Brock Lesnar because Brock Lesnar has been giving lots of subtle hints and encouragement to Drew McIntyre and coaching him in lots of little ways. Same with Paul Heyman. Drew McIntyre is a very talented man. He's also a very humble man who is aware of the need to keep growing and learning. We can all learn a lot from him, and he is open about the fact that he can keep learning from other people. Moving on to viewership, they are not worried about Raw and SmackDown. In fact, they are extremely happy with the ratings they've been getting from Raw and SmackDown. With no one in the arena, with a completely different show, with hardly any of the wrestlers that they normally get, and with having to put matches on from previous pay-per-views, I think, and they think, that they are doing extremely well to hold on to the viewership that they currently have. Finally, touching on ESPN, recently broadcasting WrestleMania 30, that showing reached about 800,000 viewers, which is extremely good for a replay that is more than 5 years old. You will see more of this. It was something of a trial run. ESPN is one of those that have been trying to buy the rights to pay-per-views in the back catalogue from the WWE network. This is certainly a trial to see if the viewership is there. WWE are very happy, ESPN are very happy. We are likely to see more WrestleManias, Royal Rumbles and the like on ESPN very soon. That's everything I wanted to mention today. If you have any questions, please drop them in the comments or message me on Twitter. My Twitter is @Colohue, that's COLOHUE. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you next time.